Hi everybody, it's Sarah with the Windham Public Library, and I'm here for another Art Night In. This month we will be making jewelry using metal washers and book pages. It'll look something like this. It's a really easy project with some pretty simple step-by-step instructions, and so I'll show you what we need to get started, and then I will make them up for you so you can see how it's done. Starting, you're going to need some metal washers. These you can find at Martin's in those tiny little drawers out back, and they're like 10 cents each. Or if you're like me, you can find it in your garage. I used a big one for the necklace, and I used 2 small ones for the earrings. You're also going to need a page from a book, but not one of your library books, a pair of scissors, a pencil, some hole punchers. I have your standard hole puncher and then one that was a little bit bigger. You don't necessarily need this one. You can use scissors to cut it out, but this was really helpful. Some glue. You can use a glue stick or some Elmer's glue, and this is the part that makes it look like glass is covering the jewelry. So this right here is Mod Podge, and it's the super glossy Brilliant. It's really, really thick, and when it dries, it creates this kind of bubble of glass layer on top of your jewelry. You can also use Dimensional Magic, which is wonderful and is sold in the same area that this is sold in at craft stores. It's just in the glue area. But Dimensional Magic is a little bit harder to use, so I thought we would start with this one and see if we can make it easier. So now that we have everything that we need, I'll angle it down and we'll get started with how to make the jewelry. So we're going to start with a book page. We have this book page here, and we're just going to trace around the large washer, and then we're going to trace the inside too so that we can center that inside circle. Now, because we traced outside, this circle is larger than this right here. So when we cut it out, we actually want to cut it slightly smaller. So if you can see, when I cut this one out right here, I went inside the line. The line was kind of just like a guiding point for me. And you do that because you want this to sit on the washer and not over the washer. You want it to kind of sit right on the washer like that. And then for the small one, I used my hole puncher. So I punched out a hole this size. And then I kind of guessed with this one where the center of that might be. With these hole punchers, I always punch a couple times and turn it until that little circle falls out. And so that pretty much sits right on top. And if it's too big, just trim around the edges a little bit so that it can sit nicely on top of that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our pieces and we're going to glue them onto our washers. Now, if you're using Elmer's glue or a glue stick, it's easy to kind of push it back and forth until you have it centered to where you want. And then I just kind of tap the edges around it to make sure that they're down. Make sure that there aren't any bubbles underneath. I kind of just run my fingers over it. And I'll do the same with the little one. There are so many different size washers. I actually have quite a collection at home because I love making these. I've made magnets on top of washers too before. I really enjoy doing stuff with washers and old book pages or some of my old drawings or my kids' old watercolors. All right, so we have those on, and you don't have to wait for them to dry. The next step is the step that's going to take a very long time to dry. So I find it really helpful if you have these maybe on a piece of cardboard so that you can move them to a safe spot afterwards without tipping them or bending them, because what we're going to do is add like a very generous amount of this Mod Podge onto the tops of these, and it's going to create like this convex bubble over the top. So I find it really nice if you have an old book or even a cereal box that's flattened out so that you can carry it to a tall shelf. This takes about 2 days to dry, so it's about 48 hours. It might be more, and you can touch it to see if it's tacky. And if you happen to notice a fingerprint on it, it's not ready. It's not dry yet. So you want it to get to the point where it looks like glass. And I'll pull this one off so I can show you. It's very shiny, and there is a convex bubble of what looks like kind of glass over it, and it just feels amazing. It's really great. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our paintbrush, and I just start by kind of scooping it out of the jar. Not too much, but not too little. Now there's a ton right there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe it off on the jar, and I'm going to start spreading it out. Now you want it to be kind of overflowing with it, but you don't want it to go off the sides. So if it starts to go off the sides, you just need to take a toothpick or a smaller paintbrush and kind of guide it back up. Otherwise it's going to stick to whatever you have, like it'll stick to this purple paper, or it will stick to your piece of cardboard. Which you can take off later, of course, but so it's not a huge deal. So mine definitely went over right there. I'm a little overzealous with the glue right now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this pencil, and then I'm very carefully going to pick this up and move it so that it doesn't get stuck to the paper. And then I will kind of clean up around the edges and see if I missed any spots right here. And so I'm not even adding more glue at this point. I'm kind of just pushing it out, and I'm not sure if you can see because it's clear and it's glue, but I'm going to try and hold it up to the camera so you can see what it looks like. And I would do the exact same thing with the little one. Of course, it's so much smaller and you need so much less glue. And so you're not just painting a coat on top, you're actually leaving quite a large amount of this glue, but this glue is more like resin, so you're leaving like a large amount of resin on top of it, and it just holds there. It's so thick that it's not going to fall off the sides unless you add too much like I did on that first one. And actually this is a pretty good example, so let's see if I can slide this off and show you. So if you can see, if I tilt it too much it's going to fall off, but if you can see, I've added a lot of this Mod Podge resin to the tops of that, and that will take 2 to 3 days to dry. If you notice any tiny bubbles in it, you can just take like a pin or a toothpick and you can pop them or just kind of move them off the side. And then it will dry clear. So once it's dry, it dries really clear, and it almost magnifies the type a little bit on the book. And then if you wanted to create, so for this I just had a string that I used and I just looped it around and tied the end. And for the earrings, I had some of these at home, some of these dangly hooks, and I did the same thing. I just wrapped string around the smaller ones and then tied them into the little hole at the bottom and created the earrings. And I can show you those one more time. I used thread actually for those so that they're a little bit smaller. And that is it. I always put anything using this Mod Podge resin up on a very high shelf where my kids and cats and dogs can't get it, because if you wait 3 days for it to dry and it's all matted down with scratches and dog hair in it, you'll be really sad. So I hope you enjoyed this. The display will be out for the month of February at Circulation, so you can come and see what it looks like. And please comment below or show me pictures if you guys finish your projects and you'd like to share. Hope you have a wonderful month. Take care.